Hello, fabulous friends and fans. Welcome to Synchronicity University. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. We are right now in the midst of, and this video is about the moon in the astrology chart. And we're going through the moons, through the signs, through the houses, and this video is on the moon in the sign of Aquarius, the moon in the 11th house in the astrology chart. Now, if you are a person who has the moon in the sign of Aquarius, you will identify with some of the things of having the moon in the 11th house. However, you are going to want to watch the video that applies directly to the house that your moon is in, and then synthesize the two to come up with a more deeper understanding of how it is that you are going to honor that moon, and vice versa as well, if your moon is in the 11th house but not in the sign of Aquarius. The moon is of primary importance in a chart. The moon represents what we need to feel emotionally fulfilled, what we need to feel comfortable with ourselves and in the world, to care for ourselves, and to feel like we are being cared for by another. It's important in terms of understanding how to fulfill your life purpose. It's really important in understanding love and relationships as well, but also self-love being a part of that as well. Moon in Aquarius is kind of out there, can be kind of out there. It is sort of classically thought of as unpredictable, thought of as having sort of a doubleness. So all the air signs have very strong dualities to them, and Aquarius just takes it to a whole other level, having a very strong duality. So these are people who can sometimes have emotional reactions that seem to come out of nowhere, that don't always make a lot of sense. These are people who can be very hot or very cold, sort of moment to moment, day by day. People with whom you can have a very strong connection, very strong relation one day, and then it really changes up in the days moving forward. Now, this is the sign of the humanitarian, but it's also the sign of the individual. And so they're always kind of riding these two different needs, these two different drives. They're always kind of looking at, okay, how is what I need fit in with the larger population, with the larger plan. They're looking at the commonality between them and the people around them. And this can be the basis of a lot of compassion. But they can do it, they have the ability to do it in a detached kind of way. So they're not just soaking up other people's emotions, but are able to say, okay, yes, I see the commonality and this is how it all works together. A lot of their belief that, you know, in the humanitarian effort, in the collective, the belief that, you know, you deserve to be whoever it is that you want to be, you deserve to have the life that you want to have, comes from and is rooted in the belief that they deserve to be whoever they want and they deserve to have the life that they want. So ultimately, their humanitarian ism, right, their humanitarian drive tends to be very rooted in self. It tends to be rooted in what they ultimately want to do. So they're not asking you to be anything other than who they are, in terms of, they're not asking you to give up your freedom, because however they define freedom, which can really run the gamut depending on the Aquarian, they're not asking you to give up anything that they're not also willing to give up as well. And whatever it is that they want afforded to them, they would want that afforded to everybody. So they have that recognition. But as I said, Aquarian energy can really run the gamut. So we see people who are, you know, hold very conservative views, are sort of held up as these, you know, ultra conservative people, having strong Aquarian energy. And then you see it go the other way as well. You see people who are like really leaders in the New Age movement, which is why this sign is strongly associated with the New Age, because it connects, it is a sign that connects science with spirit, with intuition. Now, there can be, depending on the Aquarian, a very strong emphasis on one over the other. However, ultimately the New Age is sort of formulated on one of the basic principles of self-authority, that you yourself within you know the answers that are right for you. You yourself within you know and can define for yourself what the divine is, what creative energy is, what love and wisdom is, however it is that you call that. So they know, or they believe, that on some level we all have that connection to something higher, and that is a wisdom that speaks to us personally, and how that speaks to you will be different than how it might speak to another person. That's a very Aquarian view. The thing with that view is that while that ultimately can form the foundation of the type of person who then can say, you know, they're about the new age, who then can go out and, you know, be an amazing astrologer, for example, who knows a lot of the techniques, who studies deeply, who gets it on a mathematical level, but also infuses intuition into what they do, which is why Aquarius sometimes is aligned with astrology. At the same time, this can also create a really interesting sort of, you know, what's been called a religion of self, where the individual becomes the important thing, and it's not so much about how your actions necessarily might be impacting others. So there's an interesting balance there. There's an interesting distinction there. People with moon in Aquarius, in their own way, are also figuring out what's true for them. They may go about it in some dramatically different ways, and they may go about it in ways that make no sense to the people around them. They may change their mind very dramatically as well, but it's almost like they will try a path and they will be committed. It's a fixed sign after all. But once they have exhausted the possibilities, once they have made up their mind that they're either going to walk this no more, or they're going to go in another direction, that's it. It's done. They are going in that direction, and there's nothing you can say or do to change their mind. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't take a lot to get them to that space. In fact, I do think that moon and Aquarius types are more committed, whether it's to a person in a relationship or a plan of whatever action, a plan of, you know, something that they desire to achieve. They're more committed to that than another sign might be. However, how it is that they actually change course is a process that, I mean, really, they stay diligent, they stay committed, but it really takes a lot of hammering away at them. Like if you are with somebody who is a moon in Aquarius, and you know that you're not doing right by them in some way, they might overlook it for a while. They might, you know, say, okay, let's try this, let's try that. But once they actually get to the point where they say, that's it, I have tried everything with you and I am done, then they really are going to leave. They really are going to go another direction. Now that is true, I do believe, for all the fixed signs out there. The fixed signs, you do see this quite a bit. However, with the Aquarian, that shift can be very dramatic, can be very sudden at that. And this is true also not just in terms of the romantic thing, but also in terms of, as I said, what they're pursuing, the goals that they're pursuing. They can be on one career path and be diligent with it and be committed to it and say, this matters for all these reasons. It matters to me for all these reasons. It matters to the collective for all these reasons. Matters to humanity for all these reasons. But once they get to a point where lights come on, which they will from time to time, lights will come on. You know, all of a sudden, the room is illuminated and they see what they had not wanted to see before, were not looking at before. Once that moment happens, they're not going to go back. They're not going to continue that path. They must make that adjustment. They feel it and they know it. They've got to make that adjustment, and they will do so. And so while it does seem sometimes like there's no rhythm to what's happening with them, there actually is. Ultimately, it is about an inner compass. They are very freedom-loving, and don't try to possess an Aquarian moon, because that person will not be possessed. It's like the Sag moon. Sag and Aquarius moon, if you know, they say if you love it, set it free, and if it returns, it's yours. Well, if you love it and you set it free, it will love you that much more because of it. It's not just about it returning, but you've got to allow that freedom to the Aquarius moon and the Sag moon for that matter. But these two signs in particular, if you do love this person, you've got to let them have their space. They have to have their own projects. They have to have outlets for their creativity, because they will have a lot of ideas. I know people with Sag moon who do all kinds of things, and they may on the surface, because It has two rulers. It has Saturn as a ruler, which can be very traditional. So some Aquarians can appear very traditional, very conservative, or it can have Uranus as the ruler, which can be very eccentric. But regardless of how it looks on the surface, every like moon and Aquarius person I've ever met, they have something that's all their own. So they might be really traditional, they might have a family, they might be married, they might be, you know, very much along established lines, but then, you know, you look just beneath the surface and you see, oh wow, this person like designs clothes and sells them online, like designs really funky clothing online, or, you know, has some sort of a catering business of a very high niche or something, or collects little, you know, figures from science fiction movies from the 70s. Like these types of little things, these little ways that they find to exert their independence, to say, this is who I am and this is something that is all mine. They have to have that. So you have to grant them that. If this is a person, and also if you are a moon in Aquarius, you've got to allow people to do that as well. Now, if you are somebody with a moon in the 11th house, moon in 11th house types of people, they need social connections. Whereas just having a moon in Aquarius, yeah, on the surface it would look like these people would be really social. And while they have that ability to actually, you know, it's not about schmoozing necessarily, but they have ability to like interact with all different kinds of people from all different kinds of background as an equal. They have the ability to see people as equal to them, regardless of what the surface distinctions might be. So they might be, again, somebody really buttoned up, really conservative, and then you look and they have like this variety of people around them who are like of all different social locations, from people who might be like of a different income bracket, people who might be of a different like sort of sexual orientation, different races, different religions, different cultures. They're very open in that regard if they have a moon in Aquarius. Moon in the 11th house, it's not so much about like sort of having, you know, the differences, right? Relating on an emotional level to really different types of people. It's more about just being social. It's more about just being out there, belonging to different groups, being active in the community. Usually the larger community, being active in some cause or something that matters to them, something idealistic, is a way in which they're going to go about sort of directing some of their more social energy. But it matters to them to connect with people more broadly, okay? Now, again, depending on the sign that moon is in, will depend on how passionate those interactions are, how committed they are. So Aquarius as a sign can be really detached. That doesn't mean they don't feel, it's just that they're able to separate emotion from intellect. However, having the moon in the 11th house, depending on the sign of the moon, will say something about how you feel about and what kind of sort of memberships and group alliances that you actually hold. But that is going to matter. Now, the 11th house also has an association with love received. So the 5th house has to do with love that you give. The 11th house has to do with love that you receive. Now, some people have said that the 11th house is one of the most overlooked, but also most important houses in the chart. I think every house in the chart is important. Every house in the chart matters. But what's really interesting to me about the 11th house and having a moon in the 11th house is that there is this emphasis on and learning having to do with allowing yourself to receive love, receiving love. Now, I actually think that this idea of receiving love is also connected in some way to the 2nd house. But whereas the 2nd house, it's more like knowing you deserve to receive in a bigger way, whether it's to receive nice things, knowing that you're worthy. But the 11th house isn't so much necessarily about worthiness. It's just about the allowingness and allowing yourself to receive love. So if your moon is in this place, but it's very difficultly aspected, right? Lots of aspects happening, lots of tough aspects happening to that moon, then that's going to make that a big part of your learning in this lifetime, is learning to allow yourself to receive the love of others, whether it's in a group way, in a bigger way, or whether it's just for your identification within a group, to allow yourself to accept that love. And sometimes that's really good. It isn't always that we need to be loved for who we are. Yes, sometimes that's awesome. That's what the 7th house is about. The 7th house is about that one-on-one love, being loved for who you are, seeing yourself reflected in the eyes of another. The 8th house is about really being vulnerable, really being laid bare, spirit and all, in front of another person and knowing that it's okay and that you're safe. The 11th house doesn't need to do all that. It's risen above those one-on-one alliances and being really raw, really bare. Instead, it's like, you know what? We all deserve love. And I can be loving, and I can accept love. That's what the 11th house is about receiving love. It could be romantic love, yes, but it could also be a love that not necessarily is so romantic, but is a love for not who you are as an individual, but just being part of a certain group or collective, whatever the case may be. If that's the kind of love you need, and if you have the moon in the 11th house, that will be the kind of love that you need as well. But you want to be aligned with something that feels that it connects you to everyone and in some way helps lift humanity. That is something that's going to matter if you've got the moon in the 11th house. And also, it's one of the more social parts of the sky as well. So if you've got the moon in the 11th house, make sure you're making time to have fun, to party, to enjoy the company of other people, to get together with friends, to socialize. It needn't be anything heavy duty. It needn't be anything that feels very consequential. And it needn't be something that doesn't feel authentic either. It doesn't necessarily have to be schmoozing. But just go, enjoy yourself, and allow yourself to be introduced to all different types of people. And you will find yourself leaving, interestingly, even if they are only superficial connections, you'll find yourself leaving feeling more loved than if you had not gone to that occasion. Thank you so much for watching. I love your interactions, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, my website, nadiyashah.com, and the YouTube comments. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Sending you big astro hugs. So grateful for this moment with you. Truly so grateful. Until we connect again, take care. Thank you for watching this lesson as part of Synchronicity University. You can go online at synchronicityuniversity.com or click on your screen if you're on YouTube right now to access even more video lessons, to access horoscopes, interviews with some of the most amazing astrologers in the world, and so much more.